Today we're going to start with a quick review of the distributive property, one of my favorite properties, the distributive property. You remember, I hope, that when you're using the distributive property, it allows us to multiply over parentheses. So if we have a sum or a difference, and it's important you realize it's a sum or a difference in here, multiplied by the same thing, you can multiply over the parentheses. So you still have to remember your exponent rules. So 4x times x is 4x squared, and 4x times 2 is 8x. This one is a little trickier because there are three terms. It's a trinomial, and there's more to think about. So remember, you do the signs. Positive times a positive is a positive. 6 times 3 is 18. X squared times x squared is x to the fourth. And then we multiply to the next term. Both are positive, so it's going to be plus 2 times 6 is 12. X squared times x to the third second is x to the third. And now this one is a positive times a negative, so it's going to be minus 24x squared. And that's a lot of what you're doing today. So the focus of the last lesson was adding or subtracting polynomials along with the polynomial vocabulary. This is multiplying polynomials. So the first part of the lesson is just like the whiteboard activity, really, using the distributive property to multiply. So it's like what you did in the beginning of the year, except it's a little bit more complicated because now you know exponent rules. So we're just going to multiply each term, because this in the inside of the parentheses is addition subtraction. Each of these terms is being multiplied by 4x. So you can multiply over the parentheses. So we can first do 5x times 4x. So 4 times 5 is 20. X times x is x squared. Then we go to the next one. Positive times a negative is a negative. And remember, a negative is like a minus sign. So we could either put plus a negative or we can just put minus. And we write this alphabetically. And 4 times 20 is 80. And both were positive, so it's plus x. This one is a little bit more complicated because there is more to multiply. So negative times a positive is a negative. 2 times 5 is 10. X squared times x is x to the third, y. And then here, the next one, negative times a negative is a positive, 2x squared, y squared. And then the last one, negative times a positive is a negative, so we could put plus a negative, but we don't like our double signs. 2 times 20 is 40, and then there aren't any other variables, so we just rewrite x squared, y. So these were examples of when we multiplied a polynomial, and it could be a binomial, a trinomial, or a polynomial, by a monomial, where there is just one term that we're multiplying. We can use a distributive property. What happens if we're multiplying by a binomial instead of monomial? Alright, so a very common problem that you will see in practice is multiplying two binomials, where there are two terms being multiplied by two terms. You can't just do x and 2 times 3, because x is actually being multiplied by both of these, and 2 is being multiplied by both of these. So we're going to talk about three different ways: the area model, the distributive property, and the FOIL method. Alright, the area model talks about if you have a rectangle, you know that the area of that rectangle is length times width. So here we have the length and here we have the width. So this is like the length and this is like the width. So this would be an x, and we add 2 to it. And here is our x, and we add 3 to it. And then you can find the area of all of the little pieces. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. 3 times 2 is 6, and x times 3 is 3x. And then combine like terms. So if we're talking about the area of this entire piece, we have all of these little pieces that we have to add together. So we have x squared plus 5x plus 6. So that is the area of this. We can also look at it using the distributive property, where you take this term and multiply it by both of these terms, both of the second terms, and this term. So it's like you're splitting it up like you're going to take your x and multiply it by x plus 3, and you're going to take your 2 and multiply it by x plus 3. So we have x squared plus 3x here, and 2x plus 6 here, and we have our middle terms that we can combine, so our final answer is x squared plus 5x plus 6. So all we did was we split this one up into two separate pieces, here and here, and multiplied the second binomial by both of them. My preferred method, though, is the FOIL method. The FOIL method stands for first, the first terms, the outer terms, the inner terms, and the last terms. It's a way for us to organize our multiplication. So we could do our first terms, x times x is x squared, and our outer terms, so that is 3x, and our inner terms, which is 2x, and our last terms, which is 6. And then combine, and once again we get the same thing, x squared plus 5x plus 6. So first, we did our first, our outer, our inner, and our last. All right, let's do 3 more examples. I suggest after the first one you pause, or you pause right now if you're feeling comfortable with first, outer, inner, last, and try these on your own and then come back and check your work. Don't just copy what I am doing, but try it on your own first. So first, outer, inner, last. So FOIL. So my first, x times 3x is 3x squared. Outer, x times 1 is just x. Inner, negative times a positive is a negative. 4 times 3 is 12x. And last, 4 times 1 is 4, and it was a negative times a positive, so it's a negative. And we're going to combine our terms that are like, so we have 3x squared minus 11x minus 4. So again, pause please and try the next couple of examples and then come back. All right, here we're going to do first, so 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 5, it was a positive times a negative, so it's a negative. 10x. Negative times a positive is a negative. 1x. And then the last, negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times 5 is 5. And we're going to combine those middle terms. So 2x squared minus 11x, because remember negative 10 minus 1 is negative 11, plus 5. A common mistake I see is with these middle terms, making this the squared, but remember x plus x gives me 2x, not x squared. So don't change the exponent in there. And then the last one, we're going to do first, 6 times 4 is 24, m times m is m squared. Outer, 6 times 8 is 48. And we're going to go alphabetical, so mn. Inner, 7 times 4 is 28. And again, we're going to go alphabetical, m times n. And last, 7 times 8 is 56. N times n is n squared. And now we find our middle terms, even if you had written one of them as nm, they still are the same variable, so we can add them together. So we have 24m squared plus 48 plus 28, 16, carry the 1, so 76mn plus 56n squared. And this is in standard form again because we go alphabetical first and then by exponents. So m before n, but here this is a squared, so it comes before the m here. First, outer, inner, last.